Amidst the cacophony of war, the lost men of the Death Company surged forward. A torrent of black-armored fury crashing against the endless green tide of the orcs. Their eyes burned with the madness of the Black Rage. At their forefront stood Chaplain LEMARTES, the guardian of the lost, his Crozius Arcanum cleaving through the alien horde with righteous zeal. His voice, a thunderous litany, rose above the din, galvanizing his brothers to fight with a ferocity that even the battle-hungry orcs could not withstand. Despite being vastly outnumbered, the Death Company, under LEMARTES' command, became an unstoppable force, their fury carving a path through the enemy ranks. Chaplain LEMARTES, a figure of solemn duty within the Blood Angels chapter, bears the burden of leading in battle those who have succumbed to the Black Rage. This affliction, a curse inherited from their Primarch Sanguinius, drives its victims into an uncontrollable berserk state, making them relive the Primarch's gruesome final moments. LEMARTES himself is not untouched by this curse. He battles the same inner demons as those he leads. Yet, through sheer force of will and unwavering faith, he somehow harnesses this fury, channeling it into a weapon against the enemies of the Imperium. His leadership transforms the Death Company from a potential liability into a devastating force on the battlefield, embodying both the tragic flaw and the loyal spirit of the Blood Angels. LEMARTES grapples with the Black Rage himself, yet remains semi-lucid through sheer force of will, a feat very few could ever hope to achieve, and one that speaks to his exceptional strength as a chaplain. Let's dive deep into the essence of the chaplains of the Adeptus Astartes, those grim, revered figures who stand as both spiritual guides and fearsome warriors. In the Brotherhood of a Space Marine chapter, few roles carry the weight, both literal and symbolic, that a chaplain does. In this episode, we will also explore some of the most notable chaplains that serve the Imperium of mankind across the galaxy. But who are these warrior priests? What drives them to such fierce devotion? And why are they so deeply respected and feared by those they serve? Before we continue with the lore of the chaplains of Warhammer 40K, we'd like to remind you that in anticipation for our 200,000 subscriber milestone, we are giving away one lucky individual the chance to win a fully painted Great Unclean One of Nurgle, an iconic centerpiece of chaos that oozes character and power. They are grotesque manifestations of rot and disease, embodying Nurgle's twisted love for all things that fester and wither. Despite their monstrous appearance, bloated, oozing, and riddled with sores, these demons exude a disturbing joviality, treating their devastating plagues as gifts to be shared with everyone. If you want to learn how to have a chance to win it, check out the suggested video, or find the link in the video description below. The chaplains are more than just enforcers of doctrine. They are the soul keepers of their chapter, the guardians of faith, integrity, and honor within the ranks. Every Marine, from the greenest neophyte to the most hardened veteran, holds their chaplain in awed reverence. To the Battle Brothers, These wrathful priests embody an unbreakable will, a single-minded dedication to the Emperor and the ideals of the chapter. It is said that even the bravest of warriors stand straighter in their presence, feeling the weight of centuries of faith and sacrifice that these warriors of the spirit bring to bear. But what fuels the fiery wrath of a chaplain, known for their strict discipline and often grim demeanor? Chaplains are quick to root out any sign of doubt, heresy, or wavering faith. They patrol their ranks with watchful eyes, looking for any lapse in devotion, any hesitation in belief. For them, there is no higher betrayal than to falter in faith. Yet, beneath this severity lies a deep, if hidden, care for the souls of their brothers. Their anger at a brother's failings stems from a fierce desire to see every Space Marine stand as a paragon of the Emperor's ideals. In the battlefield, a chaplain's voice is rich and booming. It cuts through the roar of bolters and the clang of armor. Their words are more than just phrases. They are shields against heresy, vows that inspire loyalty and courage, even in the darkest hours. With each sermon, each chant, they strive to armor the minds and souls of their brothers, urging them to hold fast to honor, humility, and the unyielding integrity expected of the Emperor's chosen. For a Space Marine, life with a chaplain begins the moment he steps into the chapter as a young aspirant and ends only in death. From their earliest days, initiates are under the watchful guidance of the chaplaincy, absorbing the chapter's lore, rites, and catechisms. As they mature into full battle brothers, their spiritual training does not end. Every day, they pray alongside the chaplain, seek his counsel, and march into battle at his side. In many ways, the chaplain is their guide, their confidant, and when necessary, their relentless judge. And when they face the horrors of the battlefield, it is the chaplain who leads them, charging forward with a zealous fury that ignites the hearts of all who follow. Visually, chaplains are as intimidating as the doctrines they uphold. Clad in armor as dark as midnight, they are a terrifying sight. Their skull-faced death masks, crafted to embody the eternal vigilance of death itself, peer out with hollow eyes like a constant reminder of the Emperor's judgment. Their black armor is adorned with purity seals, symbols of devotion, and oaths of loyalty, each one a reflection of battles fought and sins purged. Thick chains, heavy robes, and devotional pendants hang from their armor, billowing as they march. But perhaps the most iconic symbol of the chaplain's office is the Crozius Arcanum, a weapon as fearsome as it is sacred. This power mace, crackling with energy, is not merely a badge of office, but a weapon of retribution. In the hands of a chaplain, the Crozius becomes an instrument of judgment, crushing the skulls of traitors, shattering the armor of the heretical, and sending foes sprawling with each swing. With it, the chaplain becomes both priest and executioner, a reminder to all that the Emperor's wrath is merciless. Every company in a Space Marine chapter has its own chaplain. In their presence, Even the bravest warriors are reminded of their purpose. And to a Space Marine, there is no sight more heartening, no voice more stirring than that of a chaplain calling them to war, driving them to battle, not just for victory, but for the Emperor, for humanity, and for the soul of the chapter itself. In this next chapter, we are going to talk about an exemplary chaplain who was highly regarded by his peers and brothers within the Blood Angels. He is known for carrying a very heavy burden. He is High Chaplain and Master of Sanctity, CARNARVON, often called the Watcher of the Lost. CARNARVON stands as a singular, somber figure within the Flesh Terrors chapter. His title is no mere honorific. It marks his grim duty to bear witness to each brother who dies in battle or succumbs to the Black Rage, that harrowing madness that haunts the sons of Sanguinius. The weight of such a task is heavy indeed, overseeing not only the chapter's sacred rites, but also holding vigil over the souls of those who slowly slip away, their minds fractured by the Black Rage. For nearly 250 standard years, CARNARVON has held his position, his gaze fixed on the dwindling ranks of his chapter, now numbering only about 400. He alone discerns the early signs of the Black Rage among his comrades, watching each for the faintest flicker of madness that signals their fall. What must it be like to carry such a burden? To look upon friends and brothers only to see many of them devolve into uncontrollable beasts, consumed and blinded by pure rage. Whispers among the chapter say that the toll of witnessing so many of his brothers descend into insanity has frayed even CARNARVON's formidable sanity. Yet, he remains unwavering in his duty. When the time comes, it is he who decides who among the afflicted will serve one final time in the Death Company, and who must be confined to the Tower of the Lost, a place where no redemption remains, and only incineration awaits, as the afflicted that end up there have fallen so far into madness that even CARNARVON cannot save them. For the chaplain, each decision is not just a command, but a farewell to his afflicted brothers. This is his burden, and he continues his unyielding commitment, even as his own spirit teeters under the strain. The path to becoming a chaplain is not one of simple aspiration or mere ambition. It is a journey of spiritual calling, a transformation from warrior to guardian of souls, and each chapter in the Imperium holds its own ancient rites and trials for those who feel drawn to this sacred duty. For some Space Marines, the path is a grueling trial of faith, endurance, and unwavering discipline. A path walked only by those who are prepared to embody the chapter's ideals in every breath, every thought, and every action. There are multiple ways by which a Space Marine can become a chaplain, and these vary from chapter to chapter. Yet many Space Marines who have felt the calling to join the chaplaincy follow the path of the Judiciar. It is stepping into a role that requires patience, restraint, and a silent dedication that speaks louder than any words. Each Judiciar is armed not only with the physical tools of his station, but with relics of immense symbolic power. They are entrusted with a mighty executioner blade, a weapon forged to mete out justice with ruthless precision, and the mysterious Tempor Mortis, an artifact of archaeotech stasis technology that few outside their ranks can fully comprehend. But what is this Tempor Mortis? To outsiders, it is a relic of strange design, humming with a barely contained power that few would dare to unleash. Yet to the Judiciar, it is a tool of measured restraint, a device used to halt foes in their tracks, slowing the very flow of time around them. Filled with materials of spiritual significance, sand from their home world, fragments of sacred relics, the Tempor Mortis is a relic symbolizing the gravity of the path they walk. When a Judiciar wields it in battle, directing its energies against the enemy, he is not simply stopping movement. He is imparting a lesson in patience and control, reflecting the discipline he has mastered within himself. In the tradition of the Judiciars, silence is a virtue. Unlike the chaplains who stir the hearts of their brothers with litanies and catechisms, the Judiciar speaks not a word. Their silence is not a common vow, but a trial of character, a test of whether they can live the values they are sworn to uphold without the crutch of spoken conviction. The aspirant must prove his worth through actions, through battle, and through the silent strength that defines him, showing by example what it means to serve the Emperor with absolute fidelity. To become a Judiciar is to accept a lifetime of fervent devotion, a life of leading by action, not words, a life dedicated to serving as the silent pillar of the chapter's values. Another remarkable character is GRIMALDUS. He was noted for his exceptional skills and faith, becoming the youngest Marine in Black Templar's history to attain the rank of Sword Brother. He was later elevated to RECLUSIARCHY, a position that underscores his role as a spiritual leader and warrior priest within the chapter. During the HELSREACH crusade, in the later years of the 41st millennium, GRIMALDUS commanded a contingent of Black Templars, tasked with defending Hive HELSREACH from an enormous orc invasion. The siege was brutal, with millions of orcs assaulting the Hive city, leading to intense fighting that lasted for months. As the situation deteriorated, GRIMALDUS and his forces retreated to the Temple of the Emperor Ascendant, and there they made a desperate stand against the orc horde. The fighting grew so intense that the very structure around the warriors crumbled, burying them beneath a mountain of debris. All were thought lost in the collapse, entombed within the ruined temple. Yet, against all odds, GRIMALDUS emerged from the wreckage, bloodied, bruised, but unbroken. The apothecaries who treated him afterward could scarcely believe he had survived, let alone possess the strength to claw his way free from the rubble. When the war finally concluded, he was bestowed a title born of reverence and gratitude, forever marking him as the hero of HELSREACH. The Reclusiam is the sacred heart of a Space Marine chapter, a place steeped in reverence and silence, broken only by the chants of chaplains and the soft steps of robed serfs. Its alcove walls are lined with shrines to fallen heroes and relics of battles fought in the name of the Emperor. To each chapter, the Reclusiam holds profound cultural and spiritual significance. Here, the chaplains, led by the Master of Sanctity and Reclusiarch, preserve ancient rites, lead meditations, and conduct ceremonies essential to the chapter's warrior ethos. These traditions are as vital to the Space Marines as their battle skills, armor, and honor rolls, reinforcing their purpose and dedication. Within the Reclusiam lie the chapter's most treasured relics: battle standards, fragments of legendary armor, weapons of storied champions, and artifacts of the fallen. Each item is meticulously preserved by hundreds of serfs, masters of metallurgy and craftsmanship. Some serfs dedicate their entire lifetimes to polishing a single relic, or maintaining the Reclusiam's countless ceremonial candles, keeping them lit. When these serfs eventually die, the candles are then lit using tallow from their own bodies upon death. Even in death they serve, honoring the legacy of the chapter they devoted their lives to.
Look to your battle gear and it will protect you. We guard it with our lives. Your armor is your soul, and your soul's dedication its armor. The soul of a warrior is the shield of humanity. Honor the craft of death. Only the Emperor is higher in our devotion. Honor the battle gear of the dead. We ask only to serve.
Preserving the chapter's most sacred artifacts is a duty of profound honor, entrusted to the chaplains and those training to join their ranks. Often, they work alongside the Master of Relics, if such a role exists in the chapter's hierarchy, who oversees an honor guard dedicated to the Reclusiam. This honor guard, drawn from among the chapter's finest, is tasked with safeguarding relics that embody the chapter's history and values. In some chapters, this responsibility goes even further. Entire teams of investigatus helots tirelessly search through ancient lore, scouring forgotten records and after-action reports in the hopes of locating more lost chapter relics. When they uncover promising leads, recovery teams, or even Space Marines themselves, are dispatched across the galaxy, seeking artifacts that bore witness to the chapter's past. Yet, while they guard their own relics with fierce devotion, the chaplains show no mercy to the idols of their enemies. With iron resolve, they seek out and destroy Xenos icons, heretical shrines, and blasphemous artifacts. To the chaplains, it is a sacred duty to cleanse the galaxy of such corruption, and they urge their brothers to carry this same conviction with them into every battle. Leandros began his journey as a zealous battle brother in the Ultramarine 2nd Company, serving under the command of Captain Titus during the brutal liberation of Graia. From early on, Leandros was marked by his staunch adherence to the Codex Astartes, the rigid code governing the Space Marines. This fervent loyalty often brought him into conflict with Titus, who was known to deviate from the Codex's strictures when circumstances demanded it. Leandros' suspicions of his captain only grew when Titus displayed immunity to chaos sorcery, a trait that Leandros interpreted as heretical. At the campaign's end, driven by his conviction, Leandros reported Titus to Inquisitor Thrax and his retinue of Black Templars, who detained Titus for questioning for a very long time. Reportedly, it were decades that went by. Titus, being innocent but feeling dishonored and disillusioned for the taint he supposedly gave his Ultramarines chapter, ultimately joined the Death Watch as a Black Shield, taking the name Nullus. Over a century later, and recently represented through the Space Marine 2 video game, Leandros had ascended to the rank of Chaplain within the Ultramarines. When Titus, mortally wounded, was brought back to the Ultramarines after a mission during the Fourth Tyrannic War, it was the Chaplain who met him as he awoke, now transformed into a Primaris Marine. Despite his former distrust, the Chaplain reminded Titus of his innocence, urging him to seek redemption by returning to the chapter rather than the Death Watch. After Titus rejoined the Ultramarines, Leandros counseled him to keep his past secret, directing him to serve under Captain Sevastus Acheron. Titus, as a newly appointed Primaris Lieutenant, led his squad with renewed purpose, aiding the Ultramarines in their hard-won victories in this new campaign. Even after Titus had demonstrated his loyalty by aiding the Ultramarines with valor, receiving the coveted laurels of victory, and being personally acknowledged by Chapter Master Calgar himself, Leandros continued to keep his former captain under intense scrutiny.
Titus, Lord Calgar has informed you of your assignment. Good. I will brief you en route.
You are joining us?
I am.
Very good, my lord.
You have done well. You have won the trust of your brothers, and of the Chapter Master. But know this, Titus. The stain of suspicion never completely fades. I will be watching you, should you falter on the path for even a moment. I will show no mercy.
Leandros.
My lord, it is time.
Was it lingering resentment that drove the Chaplain to watch Titus so closely? A vestige of the distrust that had once led him to report his commander to the Inquisition. Or perhaps it was Leandros' unwavering dedication to the Codex Astartes that compelled him to maintain his vigilant eye. Ever adherent to the strictures of the Codex, he may have seen his scrutiny as a necessary duty of his role as chaplain, guarding his chapter against any shadow of corruption, even if it meant keeping Titus under constant watch. What are your thoughts on Leandros? And why is it that he is so inquisitive about Titus? Leave a comment below. Many of the Space Marines' traditions evolved long before the Adeptus Ministorum and the Imperial Creed. Though there are many theological differences between the Space Marines and the Ministorum, and the number and severity of these will vary depending on the chapter. The primary disagreement revolves around the divinity of the Emperor. Space Marines revere him as a brilliant, inspired man. To the Adeptus Ministorum, the Emperor is a god. Many chapters therefore disdain what they see as the fanatical ravings of the Ecclesiarchy in favor of their own ancient ways. Scant few chapters, such as the Black Templars, have ever adopted the Ecclesiarchy's teachings on this matter. Many in the Ministorum regard the Space Marines as dangerous heathens, but none can deny the Space Marines' dedication to the Emperor. Their immense tally of mighty victories, and that to some extent they share parts of their genetic heritage with the Emperor himself. Thus is there an uneasy truce between the two, only occasionally fractured by conflict. As a symbolic gesture of this peace, the Ecclesiarchy gifts chaplains with the Rosarius. This amulet, taking many forms, emits a powerful force field that is sometimes referred to as soul armor. For all the deep reverence in which the chapter's reclusiam, mighty ship-based cathedrals, and other places of sanctity are held, the battlefield is seen as no less of a place to honor the chapter in Primarch. While the quiet sanctity of the chapter's holy places offers a moment of reverence, it is upon the blood-soaked fields of war that true devotion is proven. Chaplains, the spiritual anchors of their brothers, charge into the fray, reciting litanies of death and invocations of wrath. Can you hear their voices, rising above the clash of weapons and the screams of the fallen? Each word they utter is a call to arms, an exhortation to fight with the fury of the Emperor himself. As these warrior priests drive forward, they inspire those around them to unleash their full wrath. Battle brothers roar oaths of loyalty and vengeance, hacking through enemies with chainswords and power axes that bite into flesh and armor alike. Bolter rounds tear through foes in explosive bursts, while plasma fire scorches all in its path. In the chaos, the chaplain stands as a towering figure of faith. His every swing of the Crozius is in the name of the chapter's honor and the Emperor's judgment. Each type of chaplain serves a purpose distinct, yet united under the Emperor's will. Let us delve into the diverse forms that these champions can take on the battlefield. A judiciar on the battlefield is a figure who moves with measured purpose, surrounded by the chaos of war, yet untouched by its distractions. His blade flashes with precision, and in his hand the tempra mortis pulses, trapping foes in a field of stasis, freezing them in their tracks as they come face to face with judgment incarnate. As they cut down their enemies in grim silence, they must prove their worth in battle to join the chaplaincy proper, doing so through acts of deep devotion and the slaying of their enemies. A chaplain striding into battle is a sight that moves even the hardest of hearts. Cloak billowing in the searing winds of war, absolver pistol flashing with righteous fury, he cuts through the chaos. The chaplain's role is about fortifying the spirits of those around him. He knows that armor alone cannot shield against the dread of the unknown. Clad in formidable Terminator armor, chaplains become pillars of strength in the brutal close-quarters combat. Their litanies are never more essential than during the chaos of boarding actions and breachhead strikes, where the clash is relentless and the blood flows freely. In these dire moments, the chaplain's towering presence in heavy armor is a guiding light to his veteran brothers. With his booming voice and indomitable form, he leads them through the carnage, unwavering and resolute, instilling courage and faith where the need is greatest. When mounted on a Raider-pattern jet bike, the chaplain becomes a force of unstoppable momentum. Charging at the head of the swiftest armored advances and spearhead strikes, These are often deployed when swift tactics and quick movements across the battlefield are required. With his Crozius Arcanum raised high, and his voice thundering catechisms, he drives his brothers forward. Equipped with a jump pack, the Chaplain becomes a thunderous force, able to soar across the battlefield to wherever his presence is needed most. Many encounters, from small skirmishes to full-scale battles, have been influenced by the timely arrival of a Chaplain ready to unleash his wrath and inspire his brothers to new heights. In these moments, he is both warrior and prophet, bringing strength to his allies and delivering swift judgment to those who stand against the Emperor's will. ASMODAI is a name that strikes a rare chill, even among the hardened warriors of the Dark Angels. This venerable interrogator chaplain is known across the Dark Angels chapter not only for his age and experience, but for the unflinching, often brutal methods he employs in his unyielding quest for the repentance of the fallen, the members of the Dark Angels chapter that fought against the Emperor during the Horus Heresy. His role is more than just that of an interrogator. He embodies the chapter's darkest zeal, determined to root out and redeem the traitors, no matter the cost. With every captured fallen, ASMODAI's methods become more refined, more feared. His captives often prefer death over the ordeal they know that awaits them. For the Dark Angels, he is a necessary figure, a grim prosecutor that assures that no betrayal goes unpunished. Tales of his relentless nature, whispered among even the most stalwart Astartes, serve as a warning. ASMODAI will stop at nothing to secure the repentance of those who have strayed, and his fervor has transformed him into an unyielding shadow in the chapter's pursuit of redemption. To many chaplains, each slain enemy is a sacred offering. Mountains of the dead rise as silent witnesses to their loyalty and zeal. For these warriors, there is no higher expression of faith than the brutal aftermath of battle. And as they stand victorious, bathed in the remnants of their enemies, one cannot help but wonder, is this not their truest altar, the purest place of worship? The chaplain is more than just a soldier. He embodies faith under fire, a true sign of relentless devotion in a galaxy darkened by treachery and corruption. For the chaplain, there is no greater duty, no higher calling, than to serve the Emperor, guide his brothers, and wield the Emperor's fury against all who would see humanity fall.